Today, the 6 positions that you need to know to be comfortable on the ground, whether you're doing Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, mixed martial arts, self-defense, submission grappling, anytime you're on the ground. Hey there, I'm Stefan Kesting, and this is the Strenuous Life Podcast. In the modern combat environment, when everybody's watching some guys in the UFC go down to the ground and fight on the ground, even tough guys who've never trained have got some idea of ground fighting. So you have to have some amount of ground fighting, some amount of grappling in your arsenal, even if you're a Taekwondo guy, even if you're a Sistema guy, even if you're a Filipino martial arts guy. If you hit the ground and you're completely lost, then you're lost, right? Then there's a huge flaw in your game. So you need at least some level of knowledge there. The problem is, when people come and they start grappling, it's just a giant confusion of arms and legs and bodies and heads, and oh my God, what are those guys doing? And one's between the other's legs, and now they twist around, all of a sudden somebody taps out, and you have no idea of what's going on. And that's really confusing, and it's really intimidating when you're starting. But what really helps is understanding that by and large, there are only about 6 positions on the ground, and that you're going to be spending, when you're grappling, about 80% of your time in one of these 6 positions. Sure, there are going to be the weird exceptions where even I've been doing jiu-jitsu for something like 30 years, and I get to a position, I go, I've never seen that before. That happens, but it's rare. So you're going to identify the main landmarks, and when you get to side mount, and you know about side mount, then it's kind of comforting. Even if you're in a bad position, you can recognize it as something identifiable, and if it's something identifiable, then you know what to do. So let's go over these 6 positions. The first one, the most complicated one, is the guard. So position 1 is the guard, and you can break the guard up into closed guard, half guard, open guard, or hooks-based guard, frame-based guard, clamping guard. There are different ways to categorize the guard, but basically you're on your back and you're using your legs to fight your opponent. Any other position on the ground, you're losing. On the guard, it's kind of equal. In MMA, I'd rather be on the top. If I'm striking, I'd rather be on the top than on the bottom, but at least you're not losing outright. Any other position, you're losing. So position number 1 is the guard. Position number 2 is side mount. This is where one person's down and the other person's essentially on top of them, lying crossways to them. Now you can, again, include other variations in there. You can include like kezagatame, a kazuri kezagatame, ushiro kezagatame, north-south position. By and large, we're going to lump that all as side mount. Then there's knee mount. This is where you've popped up and you've got one knee on your opponent's belly, or his chest, or his hips, or even his face in some variations, but it's knee mount. It's knee on belly, or knee on belly, the way that some memes have taken off. Knee on belly is an attacking position. You're putting a ton of weight on your opponent. You're putting a ton of weight, and that forces him to do stupid things. And in those stupid things, you have the opportunity to submit him, you have the opportunity to improve your position, and you have the opportunity to strike him, obviously. So, guard, side mount, knee mount. Next is full mount. This is where you are sitting atop of your opponent. Again, a couple of different variations. There's S mount, there's low mount, there's high mount. But basically, you're on top. This is a super powerful position because you can punch down. And if he punches up, first of all, he doesn't have gravity on his side. He doesn't have any kind of body rotation on his side, and also reach-wise. Even if you've got shorter arms than he does, you can punch down and he can't reach you. Next position, the back, or rear mount, back mount. This is where your opponent is turned and you've got your hooks in, or body figure 4, or a couple other variations, but basically you're on his back, and now you can attack with chokes and arm locks typically. It's a terrible, terrible position for your opponent to be in. It's a great position for you to be in. Final position is turtle. You see this a lot in judo, you see this in wrestling. It's similar to the referee's position, but a bit different. You see this in MMA. Somebody's tired of getting hit, they roll over and they turn into the turtle. Not a great position for the guy on bottom, although there are some things you can do, and a pretty good position for the guy on top, although you can get caught and stuff. So those are the 6 positions. The guard, with 3 major variations, side mount, knee mount, full mount, back mount, and turtle. Now, of course, there are other positions. You can include the whole leg entanglement game from the modern leg lock game in there as well. You can include that as a 7th position. I think if you do a lot of no-gi or MMA, you really have to start considering that a 7th position. But classic Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu is based around those 6 positions. Now from each of those 6 positions, you can do 3 things. You can, if you're in a bad position, you can escape. You can move from a worse position to a less worse position. So if you have me in side mount, which isn't great, I might try to put you in my guard. We've moved from a not very good position to a more equal position. You can also try to improve your position. If you have me in side mount, you might try to move to full mount. Because from full mount, well, in a jiu-jitsu context, you get more points. In an MMA context, you can now hit me. In a self-defense context, you're really dominating me, and if you've got submissions, there are lots of submissions you can do from there. So you're improving your position. You can also attack, whether that means striking, putting pressure on your opponent, or trying to get them with a choke or an arm lock. So you can escape, you can advance, or you can attack. Your first year of jiu-jitsu is going to be learning those 6 positions, how to hold them, a couple of ways to escape from the side mount, a couple of ways to escape from the full mount, a couple of ways to escape from knee mount, back mount, to get out from the turtle, and to get out from a bad position on the bottom in the guard. How to sweep the person, how to stand back up to your feet. You're going to learn a couple of ways to advance your position. If you're in the guard, how do you pass the guard and get to side mount? How do you pass the guard and get to knee mount? Now, that's a big, complicated game, but that's something you got to learn. If you're in side mount, how do you get to mount? If you're in side mount, how do you get to the back? If the guy's turtled in front of you, how do you get to the back? How do you flip him over and pin him in side mount? In classic Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, some positions are better than other positions. This is rewarded in the point system, but the reason that those points are there is to encourage you to move towards positions from which you could strike more effectively in a fight. So the back is maybe the ultimate position. The mount is a very good position. The knee mount is good, not as good as the mount, but better than side mount. Side mount is better than being in the person's guard. So these are rewarded by the point system in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, also in a lot of no-gi grappling rule systems. But the point is you're progressing to a better position. So even if you're not actually striking when you're grappling, you're in a position where if you were to strike, the guy would essentially be helpless. So there's a hierarchy. So your escapes are going to be moving up the hierarchy. You might, if you have my back, I'm in a terrible position. My escape might be getting out of your back control and putting you so that you have me in side control. It's not as good as having you in my guard, but I've moved up the hierarchy from absolutely terrible position to not so great, and I'm going to try to advance till I get to a good position. Then finally, for each of those 6 positions, you need to learn some submissions and some attacks. Classically, these are going to be chokes, they're going to be arm locks, and they're going to be leg locks. So you can choke someone from side mount. You can arm lock someone from side mount. You can leg lock someone from side mount. You can do the same from knee mount. You can do the same from mount. You can do the same from back mount. There are attacks from each position. Now, typically, the good attacks are all from the dominant position. Sure, there are ways to submit your opponent from the bottom of mount. There are ways to submit your opponent when he's on your back. There are ways to submit your opponent when you're in the turtle and he's on top of you. But they're not high percentage. The high percentage attacks are all for the people who are in the dominant position. For those 6 positions, once you've learned a couple of escapes, a couple of ways to improve your position, and a couple of attacks, so that's 6 positions, let's say 2 escapes from each, so that's 12 techniques, 2 ways to advance your position, so that's 24 techniques, and a couple of attacks you can rely on, so that's 36 techniques. Once you've got those 36 techniques, it doesn't even really matter what they are. So long as you've got them, then you can roll, then you can play. Then if we're training and I catch you in something, you might not be able to even get out, but you'll understand what's happening to you. And if you understand what's going on, then your game will progress much, much faster. If you do a search for my book and my app, Roadmap for BJJ, they're both free. It's got a lot more resources on each of these positions, and the whole idea of a positional hierarchy within Jiu-Jitsu that drives much of the game. So I think with that idea, those 6 positions, the idea that from every position there are escapes, ways to advance your position, and attacks, I think that'll really give you a big head start in your game and make the whole process of learning jiu-jitsu much less frustrating and much more fun. And if you're having fun, then you're going to advance faster and you'll fill in that big hole that's in your game, possibly right now. Podcast listeners, if you found this interesting or useful or entertaining, please pass this episode on to somebody else in your social circle or in your training circle. Surely there's somebody else out there who would also find it interesting. This is the way the podcast grows. It's an organic growth by people like you passing it on to their friends and the people that they know. I really, really appreciate this kind of sharing. So thank you so much in advance and good luck with your training.